Good. I'm working from home. How about you?
Same thing, same thing. Just trying to get used to being in my house with all of my family.
It's going well.
Going well. It can be a little bit of a challenge, but it's been good. It's been exciting.
Yeah, I know. I was chatting with you the other day, and your wife was in the other room also working. So I know you guys are like trying to schedule the living room out together.
Yes, yes, it's very exciting right now because she works for a bank, and so she's got a lot of customers to talk to, and then I'm on trying to talk to some folks as well as my teenage daughters that are going through and going about their daily routines with Zoom and school and everything.
Yeah, yeah. Everything has changed a little bit. So that's why we're here. We were going to
Yeah,
chat a little bit about kind of light and video and how to make these things maybe look a little bit better. So I did do a video that we
which
have on
was
the
very good, by the way.
Thanks. I'm glad you liked it, Barry.
I did.
I appreciated that when I sent it to you. You were like, good job. I tried to do something really simple first because
Yes.
the reason I wanted to do the video was mainly because I had a lot of friends who are now working from home, obviously. None of us were expecting to be doing this. You and I have video backgrounds. We work with lighting, obviously, and we have a background in that kind of stuff. But a lot of my friends are asking me questions because they are not, and they don't have that background.
Yeah.
They don't have that experience. And now they're finding themselves trying to work from home, trying to be professional about it, trying to obviously look their best. I have friends that are therapists that literally are doing client communications now, and friends that are teachers that are also trying to basically find a way to, have a way of just kind of communicating with their students and keeping them engaged. I'm sure
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
girls
Which
are
is a big
probably
thing.
doing that. Yeah. Are your girls doing that now?
Yeah, they are. Both of them are Zooming, depending on what the class is, but they've got 5 or 6 different classes that they're working on. And then I am in putting them in this situation in my lighting scenario sometimes to allow them to talk to their friends or to the teacher, which is
Yeah.
interesting. They've gotten some compliments on, well, you look great today. Well, that's thanks to my
People
dad.
don't
So,
get it. Yeah, they don't know that it is the light. One of the things
no, not at all.
in the video was kind of shut off the halo light that I had, which was a ring light, to kind
Yeah.
of show what it looked like beforehand versus after the fact. I actually think I have that. Let me see if I can share my screen.
Yeah, but go ahead.
So if I share my screen, I have two views right now. The left side is basically when I shut off the halo light, and then the right side is when I actually have it on. So you can
Yeah.
actually see I have a little bit of a catch light in my eyes, and you can see that there's an even tone to my skin, as opposed to the other shot where that's just kind of the window on the right side of my face.
Right, right.
Uh,
Which in actuality, they both look good, Kelly.
you
It's
told me that before. I disagree.
yes, because one is a little more dramatic than the other because we've
Yeah,
got a nice harder shadow on that side, but
right,
you still have some nice light coming in from the window side. And then we talked about a little bit of a kicker light that you have on the
right,
shadow side
right
that's
here.
there.
Yeah,
What
exactly. You can see my
what
kick.
that ring light is doing is basically flattening you out a little bit more. What we see when we look at the news at nighttime, it gives it a little flatter look to the overall look, but you get that nice highlight in your eyes. That's what a lot of people like about the ring. That's what I know a lot of folks like about the ring light is it gives you that little pop.
Yeah, it's also just kind of an even light. So like I have
Yeah,
friends, the video that we did on the NanLite channel, we kind of showed a little clip of my friend Jess doing makeup tutorials because
yeah,
ring lights really used a lot for beauty bloggers in general, but especially kind of like a beauty almost commercial light because it aims to just kind of like even out your skin, even out
hmm
the exposure and be a really like set and ready to go kind of thing.
yeah, and it makes it easier because again, it is soft light. So I guess we should talk a little bit about but the difference between hard light and soft light. And I
Yeah.
brought a little bit of light in here myself. I was actually in my setup here. I have a little soft light that I kick on or off depending on what it needs, and it just adds a little bit to my face right there when you're doing that. Basically, the light I'm doing it with is just this little bitty on camera light that you can put either on a stand or on camera. It's running by a battery, and it's like a $50 light. That's how easy it is. But it lets just add a little bit of light to where I need it.
Yeah.
Obviously, right now, you and I both we have lots of lights that we can choose from because
Yeah,
of
we're
who we
lucky like
work
that.
for. Yeah,
Right.
but if you wanted something as simple as just a single light or something like that, you could easily take this light and put it in front of you. I'm blocking the camera. Sorry about that, guys. But that just gives you that flat light that we were talking about earlier that just kind of flattens you out. But if you take it off to the side and just add a little bit of, gives you a little something, and you can easily fill in on the other side with just what you have at your house already, like a piece of foam core or a poster board that's white. I mean, just that little bounce right there really helps, especially for folks like us that have glasses, and we
Yeah.
get that lovely, little sparkle in those glasses when you do that. So
Yeah, that's actually the reason I'm using the Forza right now. Let me see if I can get my B camera running. I'm using a Forza 300 with a parabolic softbox.
yeah.
And basically that just gives me a nice soft light. Let me see if I can get this going. So you guys can see I have,
Aha.
there you go. Yeah, so I have
Yeah.
a softbox and it's right in front of my computer. So, and that's you, Barry.
Yeah.
Like Inception.
Here I am.
Hi. So, and it has a grid on it to make it directional and stuff, but it's a nice
Yeah.
soft light. And the reason that I did that, and it's a little bit above from where I am pointing down at me. And the reason I did that was because basically my glasses, like you'll notice in
Yeah.
the video that I did with the halo, I actually specifically didn't have my glasses on.
Yep.
And that was because I was very close to my camera already. I could see everything that I was doing, and I liked the catch in my eyes, but not necessarily the ring that was happening in my glasses. So for
Sure.
this, if I go up too much, you can kind of see the light. It's not as distracting if it were like a ring light, or you could see the real shape of the light, but
Yeah.
overall, you don't really see it in my glasses either.
I kind of had the same thing, and I hooked up too. I can show you guys my my setup for my mine real quick. Let me hang on one second. Let me turn my camera on. Here we go. And there's Kelly right there on the computer. But for what you're seeing in the background, I've got basically a mix panel that is bouncing into a reflector that I have that's using more as my key light. And then over here on the other side, I'm actually taking like a little Luma pad and I'm bouncing it against my white closet door.
Nice.
And it's using as my fill. So it's giving me a little fill on this side for what this is. And then above me, I am actually using a 300 Forza with a big softbox. And I'm just kind of downlighting myself right now. And then behind me, that's my living room. There is a small 60 with a Fresnel that is actually using as a kick light for this side. And then obviously you guys can already see behind me, I've got my seafoam green, which my daughters love, above on the basically the book stand back there. And then I've got another little light over in the corner that's just kind of lighting up the rest of that. So it's a nice setup. And like I said, it's easy for me to do because you have the ability, or I have the ability to have a lot of these lights.
How many lights is that, Barry?
I am actually using I'm using 6 lights right now to light everything around me, just because I can.
Right.
I could easily do this with 2 lights if I needed to, just to make it simple. And I could do it with, like I showed earlier, with these small little lights if I wanted to, and just make it simple and easy to use. So if you're somebody that's like a teacher or an educator of some sort, or if you're someone that is trying to do some of these videos, it's an easy way of doing it to make it simple for you to communicate your message out to people. Because remember, we're just trying to get our message across, but it's always nice to look good.
Yeah, and everyone wants that. I mean, that's kind of the end goal, I think, for anybody who's doing this kind of stuff from home,
Sure.
is to kind of be professional, look good in a general sense, and to come across in a professional way, even though you are at home and you may or may not be wearing pajama pants.
Exactly. That's the case. So, and you never know what people are doing. So, and I've been quite lucky. No one's walked through my frame today. So that's been good for me as well.
Yeah, crossing. Crossing.
Crossing over just because, I warned them. That's why. So that's why they're not heading through.
I was going to say, our Zoom conversation the other day, I met several of your family members.
You did. You met my daughter. So so they've been good for me today.
I actually only have 2 lights set up right now. I have 2 of my nicer lights, my more quality lights, like the Forza 300. Let me see if I can turn my B camera back on again. But basically I have 2 lights because I wanted to make it kind of simple, because I knew your lighting setup had a little bit more going on than mine. Let me see. So if you can see that, right? So that's the softbox that I showed. And then this is actually just bouncing. This is a Forza 60 bouncing on my ceiling.
Right.
So I did that just to kind of expose the background a little bit, because I noticed that, you'll notice I'm actually right next to my window. And I mean, people might ask, why not just use the light that's in your house? Why not just use, right?
Good
We were talking
question.
about this earlier. Why not just use the available sunlight coming in? And you
Mhm.
totally can. That's
Sure.
definitely,
Windows are your friend. Yes.
yeah, light is your friend. And
Yeah.
in the video that I had, I actually was using my window to light the background before. The
Yeah.
only thing that I find that's a little difficult is controlling that. So like if you really care about how you come across in video, if the lighting is good and all that stuff, which I assume people who are joining us to talk about this do care about that kind of stuff.
Right. Right.
Controlling the light is really, at the end of the day, the go-to. So
And that's true. I've
control.
got the remote control on the light above me hooked up because you were mentioning, you have sunshine coming in right now. Actually, it's going to rain here where I am in Texas right now, here in just a bit. So it's actually a little darker outside right now. And if I actually brought the dimming down, I think I can do that. There we go. That's my top light.
Okay.
That kind of gets rid of some of the stuff, and you can see it's actually kind of dark in my in my living room here.
Yeah.
It's not as bright, so I really need to have a little more. Just I've been using it with the top light more than anything else, but just bring up a little bit more of my ambient, so and make it look a little bit more natural when I'm sitting here in this setting. So I'm not getting really any light coming in from my windows that are to the right of me right now. Everything is truly coming from the simulated look that I'm creating with the lights that I have.
Yeah, and earlier today
So,
when I was setting this up, I actually was planning on doing what I did last time, which was to use my windows to actually light the background, but I wasn't actually, at some point I was getting really harsh light that I couldn't
sure.
control. That was like really with a lot of hot spots behind me and a lot of
Yeah. Yeah.
things going on that I couldn't really control at all. And then clouds came and then there was no light. So I
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
opted to close the curtains and control the light and get rid of some of the lights that I could then just use my two light setup to
I
have a
had somebody ask me the other day, it's like, Barry, why are you bouncing the light as much as you do? And
right.
there's a couple of reasons for that. One, we talked about it early. It's our glasses. It makes it easier for us to not be these really big highlights in our glasses, but also it actually makes the light softer and more wrapping for us. And it makes softer light, obviously, soft light makes both of us look great, and we like that. And but just having that bounceability. So I'm using that big white soft reflector over there that I'm bouncing that light into. It really truly just gives you a nice wrap of soft light. And I could probably, if I had more room to move this softbox above my head up higher, I probably would go up another couple of feet. But I like to do that. I like to bounce light and move things around. It gives you more room to move around too. Now, obviously, we're in a limited space now since we're all in our houses, but it
Right.
does help to have more room to, if you like to talk with your hands, or if you're one of those type people that bobs and weaves is what I used to call. But that gives you that ability to move around in a soft area so that you're constantly that and you look good for camera.
Yeah, and also if you're just not necessarily right next to your camera like we are right now. Like I actually do, and we have a live stream about audio with Joe Nasser to talk about different audio things that
Yes, yes, for
we do as
sure.
well. That's going to be at 2:30. But I have a microphone that has a wire, so I'm kind of stuck in my position.
You're
But if
stuck. Yeah,
I,
I am too. I am
yeah,
too.
if I was a teacher that had an eraser board behind me, so I had to actually move over to the wall and actually write about lessons or something like that, it would help me to actually be able to bounce the light and have it cover more of an area.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's definitely the case. And you mentioned it. We talk about kind of stuck where we are and kind of where we set up for our stuff. There's always good ideas to kind of think about where you want to put yourself in your house.
Yeah.
We've been talking about people walking through and noise and things like that. But also know where you are in the relation to plugging things in for your lights. I mean, if you can't use a battery and you got to plug stuff in, make sure you got power around you. I'm making it so that I made sure I had like 3 or 4 power outlets around me, so I could be able to kind of get the lights where I needed them to be.
Right.
Little things like that you don't really think about. It's like, okay, how can I make this work for me for what it is, with sound, with electricity, with light, with just setting up, maybe what my background is as well. Do I look kind of silly in front of a window, or will the window blow me out, or just putting myself in front of a wall or a gray background or something, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. Yeah, background is something we should definitely talk about as well. But
Yeah.
before we do, Barry, we got our first
Oh, we
question.
have a question.
Yeah. Since I'm so new to lights, but now can afford excellent lights, I'm afraid I am over or under lighting when I film. How do I gauge what is normal? What kinds of settings should I use?
So when you're using lights and you're new to lights and things like that, you're always experimenting. And I always tell people this: lighting is subjective. It is one of those things where people say, hey, I like this. And then somebody else will walk by and say, oh, I don't really like that. And that's okay. It's not wrong or right. It's just what it is. Now, what lighting is when we look through our camera and we see how it falls on somebody or whatever it is we're shooting. That's important. Obviously, we want to get it to look the best that we possibly can. So the first thing I do when I look at something, and if I look at through a camera and I make sure that it is what I want it to look like, if it's a person or if it's a product that I'm shooting, I try to make sure that it's nice and soft wrapping. So we talked about soft light earlier. I use soft light for a lot of that. Now, if I want to bring something specific, or if I'm shooting a product, say for instance, if I want to bring out a specific feature of that product, I might use a little hard light to give it a little hard edge or a highlight. That way we know, hey, this right here is very important, pay attention to it. But a lot of times with it's us as people, there's nothing on our face or in this head and shot that we have right now that we want to bring a lot of attention to besides what we're talking about. So I'm not going to emphasize my mouth or anything like that. I'm just going to kind of have it nice and soft. So again, we might go back to what we were talking about earlier. We might bounce the light into something else, like maybe just the ceiling, if the ceiling is white, and just bring up the ambient look of that so that it's a softer light for us and it makes us look not as in your face type stuff that we sometimes see. It can be challenging a lot of times, especially for folks that are just kind of getting into lighting, because they always feel like, well, I'm not doing it right. If it looks good on camera to you, then it's okay.
And if you feel like you look better, because I
Yes,
think at the end of
exactly.
the day, if you are a teacher or you are somebody who's just getting into doing more video stuff at home, whether it's with your computer, which we're using right now,
Sure, sure.
I'm using the computer and I can't actually control my exposure or my settings or anything like that. So it was important for me to be able to control my lighting a little bit more. But if you are somebody who just wants to basically look more professional and come across in a better way. So we did have another question come in, Barry.
Okay.
Do you guys have any stand or grip recommendations for tight spaces?
Yes, really and truly, there is quite a few different things. Now, there are different stands that I'm using right now. I'm actually, for the light that I showed you guys earlier, if you were joining, I've got a light over my head right now. I'm actually using it on a C stand. So that's a bigger stand than a lot of people might have. There are quite a few smaller Kupo stands that foldable stands, little stands that actually are easy to kind of fold up and kind of pack down into something small. And then you could put that on there. I'll let you know the light that I showed you earlier that I had, which is this little on-camera light, actually has a 1/4 in the bottom of it. So you could actually put that either on a stand that goes up in the air, or you could use a little tripod and stick it next to you if you needed to do that. That's very easy and simple to set up so that you can actually have it close to you or move it farther away depending on what you need. So there are quite a few options with lights nowadays to be able to kind of set them to things. And depending on how much you want to experiment or get into some of what we call grip gear, there are quite a few different clamps that have mounts on them that you can mount lights in different interesting ways. So it just varies on how much you really want to jump into that world. But there are quite a few stands that they make that do fit into tight spaces.
Yeah, that's a question that I'm getting as well, because people who obviously don't typically light something don't know, how am I supposed to mount it? And there are a couple of different options. I did kind of show while you were talking, Barry, a couple of the light stands that I have.
Yes.
This right now, I just have a Kupo C stand, and a C stand is good for basically if you have a bigger light like I do here. Like I can't really wrap around, but I have the Forza 300, which is a monolight that's a little bit bigger. And then with the Forza 60, I just have a smaller Kupo stand, a smaller light stand that's really light and easy to use and stuff like that. So that's something that I found really simple.
Yes.
And so that's what I ended up using. And that's also what I just happened to have. Obviously, a lot of people probably don't have stands and stuff. That's why they're asking questions about it, because if they're looking into lights.
It's good questions, yeah. And those are important to understand how to mount your lights.
Yeah, the lumen pads would be fine with something like what I have the Forza on. And then you could put it at whatever height it is that you need. You could have it as a hair light if you wanted to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you sometimes you don't necessarily need a headlight like me right now, since I have a light behind me, my seafoam green that everybody likes. I'm actually using what we call more of a kick light, which is off to this side of me right here. And it's just kind of lighting up this little bit of an area right there. So I don't have a true backlight on me today. I'm just kind of setting things up. And then I actually put a little more environmental lighting over on this side that you see of me. I've just got a Pavo tube, a 4-foot Pavo tube that I'm using to kind of throw a little light on the background back there. It's always important to kind of, sometimes if you've got the ability to do it, to kind of show that you're in a live space, not just yourself, but things are going on. Now, obviously, some folks don't have that ability, but to me, it just looks like you're in more of a 3-dimensional space when you add light and things like that.
Yeah, and also color, like if you can. I mean, obviously,
sure. Oh, color's
there are
wonderful.
various different levels that you can do in terms of
Yes.
lighting, and that's something I tried to do in the video that we did for NanLite. I went from a very basic setup with a halo ring light to something that was a little bit more complicated with a Forza, and then I had a Pavo tube in the background. Actually, let me see if I can share my screen. I do have a picture of like the background that I had. Can you see that, Barry?
I see it. I see it.
Okay, so basically I put a Pavo tube behind my desk, and the Pavo tube comes like in 4-foot and 2-foot. And this one was a 4-foot one. I put basically a blue tone to it, and I just kind of put that up against the background just to make it a little bit different. And then I used one of our Lido lights with some black wrap.
Some black wrap.
Black wrap is my friend. I love black wrap.
Black wrap is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
And for anybody that doesn't know what black wrap is, yeah, it's basically just aluminum foil with it's been painted black, and it just absorbs light is what it does.
Yeah, exactly. And so what's nice about it is you can kind of shape the light. You can make it more like a directional kind of light. So I have basically some black wrap on the Forza 60, which was my hair light that you see on the right. And then with the Lido light, I also had some black wrap because I really just wanted there to be a spotlight on the plant that I had in the background. And that was just to kind of differentiate myself from the background. And
which is good. That gives, again, that 3-dimensional look that we're looking for. It makes for a really good separation between the person and what the background is.
Exactly. And I'm actually on the video right now. I'll scrim through it just to kind of show you guys something, but this is the halo light. So this is actually the
Lido light there too.
Yeah, exactly. So the Lido light was acting as a hair light for me. And I actually had a little bit of a kicker basically on the side of my face. Just because I wanted it to have a little bit more of a pop. I don't have that right now because I actually realized as I was using the computer instead of the phone, for some reason I was actually getting flare. And so I was trying to get rid of.
Now, Kelly, it could be because, you know, both of your curtains are open there. So you're actually getting some reflection and some other things coming in from the window. So even though your eye light is more of the ring light or the halo light, really and truly, sometimes your key can be just that wall of windows that you have there that are giving you, you know, kind of fills in everything on one side. So, but like I said, you look good for both of those. One was just a little more dramatic than the other when you did the comparison earlier.
How about that? Was that dramatic, that face I made?
Yeah.
You can never find a still frame where I'm not making a face, Barry.
That's okay. We all make faces when we're on camera. We always do.
Actually, camera angle is another good thing to talk about because I usually have it either even toned or a little bit higher for beauty purposes to get rid of the double chin kind of a thing. But
yeah, I understand.
Even with you is very nice instead of maybe having the computer a little bit low like we tend to have.
Yeah, yeah.
That's something to consider, especially if you're just using your computer and stuff, or you're using your iPhone, is basically how is your iPhone looking?
Sure. The camera angle always plays a difference because, you know, a high camera angle, sometimes when you're looking down on someone can be overbearing, but it depends on the angle. There's a lot of schools of thought on that. So I'm not going to say that that's the only way to go. A lot of people, obviously right now, you and I are more straight on with our cameras on our computers. But, you know, looking up as well is an unflattering shot. It always reminds me of a horror movie, actually, when the camera's looking up at someone, we're lighting them
is also
upwards.
from below.
Yeah, yeah. So I think of a lot of classic horror films that I've seen. So that's what I usually talk about when I talk about stuff like that. So
yeah.
Did we get another question from Paul Fishkin? Is there a simple way to reduce or get rid of the screen reflections on your glasses when you're doing like the ones that are on mine right now, Paul? Okay. So right now I probably got some blue reflection in my eyes. My glasses have a blue tint on them so that it's better for me when I work on the computer. That's one of the reasons you're seeing the blue. But also I have that actual soft that we saw earlier, and I'll see if I can bring up my camera real fast. Nope, can't bring it up right now. I have that soft reflector that's right in front of me, and it's actually allowing me to soften and hit this side of my face Well, it's a large soft source and that's probably what you're seeing, some of that small blue that you're seeing in my eyes there. Everything else is too off angle for it to be anything else, but probably what that is right there.
Yeah.
How can I fix that is the question. And the question basically would be for me to take the soft source and move it more to a 45-degree angle off my camera. And that would alleviate some of the blue that you're probably seeing. It would also bring me down as far as that goes, but I could add some fill light with the smaller sources that I had earlier to be able to do that and fix that. So that's how you would solve that question.
I would also add that if you are seeing the reflection of the actual screen, so if you assume that that was your screen, that if you do see the screen, you can actually dim the screen, and making sure that the lights around you are a little bit brighter than the light that's coming from your camera or your computer or whatever it is that's actually in front of you. If you have glasses on, you can dim the actual screen itself. That way the lights that are
there we go. I got my camera to work. Sorry. So that's what I'm talking about right there. On that one is basically I'm using that large soft source right there to be able to light my face. And I'd have to basically swing that over a little bit more to the right-hand side at a 45.
Yeah.
But you're right, Kelly. That's exactly what you could do to soften that, especially with computer stuff.
Yeah. I would also say that, can you show us again one more time?
Yeah, sure. I can.
So you're bouncing.
I'm bouncing mixed panel 60 into that actual, what it is just a round reflector. And I'm actually using the white reflector side to bounce into that with the soft part of the mixed panel. Because, mixed panel actually can be a hard light that's very specular, or it can be a soft light. And I'm actually taking the soft side of the light and I'm actually bouncing the soft into the reflector to soften it even more so that I look more natural.
Yeah.
It's just easier that way, as opposed to on this side where I'm actually bouncing my LumaPad into my white closet door and just getting a nice look to this side of my face.
Yeah, I love that. I use basically a white cardboard to bounce for my second setup in the video that we did, just to kind of give a little bit more of fill to my face.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find, there we go. I have a shot of it. I'll pull it up on the screen, but basically you can do this really easily. I love that you're using the door because you didn't even have to get something from
yeah, it's there. It's a white door. And
so you can see I just had a cart and I just gaff tape is usually the answer to most problems.
That's perfect. That's a great example right there of using just something that's white.
Yeah, exactly. Gaff tape and then black wrap are basically the two go-tos on sets that really kind of are the answers to most problems. So I just kind of taped it. I taped it to a shelf, and then what I was able to do is the Forza is bouncing light from that whiteboard to me so that I can have a little bit of fill on the left side of my face, camera right. So there's still shadow, but it's not as dark as it would be if I didn't have basically something bouncing a little more light on that side. So it's less of like an even keeled kind of lighting. And it's much more of something that instead of having something that is even like this, which I kind of am doing something very similar to the first setup with the halo light, which is a nice circular even light all on my face, like evened out without very much shadow. And that I had kind of the Forza off to the side and pointing down on me. So it created all the shadow on this side of my face. But then that little bit of bounce just kind of filled those shadows a little bit to make them a little less intense.
Yeah, a little something right there to kind of fill in sometimes is good. It's simple. And again, you and I both talked about this worked for me, that worked for you. There are a lot of different ways to get to the same point when somebody's using this with just things that you have around the house. It's not as complicated as I think some people think it is. And that's what I like to show these type of things. Hey, let's just try this. Let's try that. That tends to make people a little more reassured in what it is that they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have another question. I have natural light that comes from my window that leaves a harsh shadow on the side of my profile, but the lights in my office give me raccoon eyes.
How do I balance these? That's a very good question. So your biggest thing, if I had to attack that, let's say if I was just me and I'm dealing with that in my office, I think the first thing I would do is do what you did earlier, Kelly. I'd probably pull my blinds across and my curtains across and my blinds down and everything. So I could stop the sunlight first, because what I need to do
Control the
is
light around you.
control the light. Yeah, because guys, sun is always going to win. That's our brightest light, and it's always going to win whatever you're doing. So if you can control that light to start with, you're in a much better way. Now to start with the Raccoon Eyes, you probably have a lot of top lighting. So some people look good with the Raccoon Eyes. So, and if I did that too, I with this top light that I have, if I turn these lights off, I would have big skull eyes is what it would be. It would be big time. So
well, it depends on what it is you're teaching, you know.
yes.
Like you're teaching something really dark and weird, and you know,
Sure.
you want it to have like a mood.
Yeah, sometimes it can be an interesting look if you want to have that. Probably your safest bet would be to start turn those on and have those on, but then also have a small light that you can actually use. Hang on one second. I lost my, there we go. So taking that small light, like what Kelly's doing right now, she has her light that's in front of her. So taking a light like this would be something easy, and just dialing it in. Obviously, this is way too bright for Barry right now with all the other lights that he has on him, and dialing it down to where it just needs to be a little bit. You know, sometimes less is more when it comes to lighting, and subtlety is something that we're always looking for. We're looking so that it looks like that we're not lighting ourselves and we just look natural.
Yeah,
that's what we do in the movies.
So, yeah, yes. Exactly. Like I'm mimicking right now. I'm thinking that obviously the forces are daylight balanced, because I do, even though I put the curtains obviously on to cover up the daylight that's coming in so I can control the light, there's still some daylight coming in. So it's nice that the light matches. So that's another thing, actually, when they talk about their office light is probably a different color of light as well.
Yes, yes. Now that's a good thing. And I'm glad you brought that up, because, you know, you and I didn't talk about lighting color. So right now I'm using all daylight. Kelly is as well. But these little lights right here come in an actual different color. So we're used to seeing that orange sometimes. Sorry about that. That's the wrong one. There we go. So what I've done is I just warmed myself up, because I'm using orange light, which is what we'd have in the lamps next to our couch and stuff like that. Those warmer lights right there, if you've got those in your office, little lights like this that we call bicolor would actually give you that ability to be able to match that light color if you needed to. So obviously I look really kind of red and orangish right now. I'd have to,
because it's also mixing with all the other lights you have going.
Yeah, exactly.
So you were matching. If you had like lamps on in the background, like I actually, if let's say for instance, hypothetically speaking, it wasn't time and it was like an evening conference call that I was on, I could have the lights in my apartment on, like little ones here and there. I could have that little lamp in the background on, and then I could take something like that and try to match it as best as I could to the rest of the color of the lights that are around me, so that the lights aren't kind of mixing and matching in a way that doesn't seem right.
Yeah, exactly. As of right now, I'm not using the actual lights that are in this room. I'm just using the lighting that I have. But yes, that is a way of mixing and matching and making things look good. And sometimes it's actually fun to be able to kind of mix and match color like that. If I add a little more color to the background sometimes, like we did with the green light, or I use an orange light on the back part of me, it warms up and sometimes looks really good. So again, it's playing with that and trying to figure out what looks best on camera.
And it's subjective. It is something you
want always subjective.
That it looks good to you and that you feel good about the way that you're coming across and the way
exactly. That's the most important part of it. Is do I look good and do I feel good about what it is that I'm talking about?
Exactly. Yeah. So I think we should talk a little bit about background as well, because I feel lighting wise that all I think makes sense. It's basic. If you guys do have any other questions online that are a little more advanced, shoot them our way. We'll try to answer them to the best of our ability. But I'm almost going to backtrack and talk a little bit more about the simple stuff that you can do. Like, let's say you have no lights.
Yeah.
What can you do to make it look better? I think background is really important. So you might not have some kind of backdrop. If you did have some kind of backdrop or curtain or something that you could hang in the background, you could actually throw a light on there to kind of give some separation to make it look a little bit, more interesting. Like you're doing right now with the Pava tube. You could do that on some kind of backdrop of some kind. Or if you don't have any kind of backdrop, you can use what you have in your home and just make sure that what's going on behind you is neat and tidy and makes sense, and that you're far away from it as well. Because I mean, if you're like right up against a wall, it's very claustrophobic.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely don't want to be in a corner either. Try to keep away from the wall as much as you can, and try to stay out of corners, because corners can sometimes be just don't look attractive. Sometimes it makes people think you look very small and meek. And there's other schools of thought on that, but I try to stay away from corners as much as I can. And I get away from the wall as much as I can, because then it does, like you said, it gives me an opportunity to put something back there. If it's just a light on the wall, maybe it's a slash, or it's a something that's shining through. Maybe you have a plant and you light the plant and you have a shadow of the plant on the wall. Sometimes that's fun too. It's a breakup pattern is what we call it in the industry. And then also using a practical light. So let's say you have a lamp that stands up or something like that. Put that in the background, turn it on. It gives a nice shadow, and shadows are your friends when it comes to lighting. You like to place shadows different places.
Yeah, a lot of times we are asking ourselves like what light to take away. Like the absence of light is actually can be more interesting than adding more and more and more lights. It's like lighting can you take away to then add some shadow and add some depth to something.
Yeah, some dimension, some three-dimensional dimension to things makes things look more real on the two-dimensional screen. Yeah,
exactly, and that's of course the film geeks in us.
Yeah, don't get me started talking about movies, because we could talk for hours about films. Yes,
but of course, if you really love lighting, you could take it a little bit farther. We actually have something. Let me actually pull up one of the videos that we have on key light. You remember that key light video?
Oh yeah, the key light video is great, actually. There's so much fun stuff that they did with that. That's what I love about that one.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite ones for us to do. My friend Mark Raker, who's a great cinematographer, he helped us light all these different scenarios. And Dave Geffen was our presenter. And let me just share some of this. I'm just going to pull it up basically on our NanLite YouTube channel. And then I'll share my screen. And Barry, let me know if you can see my screen now.
I got you. I see you.
So this is our key light video. That's Dave. And then we have basically 6 different ways to use key lights. So the soft, even light, the halo ring lights that we have at NanLite are really easy to use. They're one light that basically has a nice even tone. So if you're doing basic lighting and you really just want to kind of keep it simple, that's completely understandable. If you're in another phase of learning how to kind of film yourself at home, maybe you're vlogging or you're actually recording with DSLRs and stuff like that, and it's a little bit like past what it is that we're doing right now, this is a good video to kind of reference, because we have a lot of different setups within here that show you different ways of using key light. So we have like here's your raccoon eyes.
Yes, everybody loves the raccoon eyes from a top light. Yes,
that's the Godfather light, if you will. And so this is something that a lot of offices, if you have like a home that obviously your lights are mostly on your ceiling and you just have that top light, this is probably going to happen. This is
that's a common look. Yes.
This is our example of bad lighting, but it's top lighting. And if you're doing something for film, obviously it's going to have something that maybe has like the Godfather. You want him to look intimidating and weird.
Yeah. And you're trying to evoke that emotion when it comes to film. I know we keep running back to film, folks, but it's what we kind of pull from when we see different looks and things like that. Because obviously this next frame that Kelly just popped up, obviously she's got a little bit of side light going there now because those raccoon eyes have disappeared, but she still has a bit of a top light.
Yeah. So this is flat lighting. So this is pretty much kind of what I'm doing right now.
Yes. So that's what we see with the news as well. When we see news at night, they tend to flatten news people out.
And then this is an example of hard light versus soft light.
Good example. Everybody loves to understand.
For flat light purposes, this is what I'm using right now, and I have a soft light on me, but it could also be a harsher light, and maybe you don't want to go harsher because again, it's not as flattering as the softer light that you see on the right.
If you're obviously as good looking as this young lady is in this video, hard light does not look as bad on her. For someone like myself, no, I have to have soft light. I'm not attractive. So
this is the butter. We decided actually that's Alex, our model Alex, who is very, very lovely and also just a sweetheart. This was her light. We found the light that was meant for her face. And a lot of actors will be like, oh, could you light me from this side like this? Because they know what their sides are and their lights are. And we found out, we told Alex, just make sure anything else that you're in, Alex, this is the light that they give you, the butterfly.
Obviously, yes. That's your best side. Sure, that's for sure. Always know which your best side is. I know my right side is my best side. So I tend to try to do this if I can. So
Yeah, and then if you're really trying to intimidate your students, if you're a teacher, maybe just do some Rembrandt lighting or something,
sure,
and just kind of
sure.
really go dark.
That's what we're used to seeing when it comes to Rembrandt. I mean, Rembrandt is such that lovely soft shadow that's on this, and it's my favorite type of lighting actually, because I see it a lot in films, and when I see it in movies and television shows, I understand that that's what they're trying to accomplish. But it
Right.
is, I tend to pay more attention because it is my favorite type of lighting. So
It's mine too. It's definitely
yeah,
mine too. It just has like this, it immediately gives a scene some kind of energy, like a
yes,
mystery to it. There's like already like dramas happening. I don't know what's going on, but something,
yeah.
I don't trust that guy with the Rembrandt light.
Yeah, or are we,
I don't know about him.
nowadays we see the villains tend to be more of a hard light. So whether they're the bad guy or whatever,
Right.
they tend to light them that way sometimes. And that helps us differentiate between, oh, this is obviously not a good guy or a good girl. This is a bad person. So they've got a lot more harsh, stark lighting on them.
Right. We also got a question about sound, but I
Oh,
will emphasize, I'm going to wait. I'm actually going to hold on that because we
okay.
have an entire conversation
Well,
about sound.
Joe's coming up.
Yeah,
So
Joe's going to come on at 2:30 and we're going to dork out about audio. Audio is also extremely important, obviously. I mean, if
very
it
important.
doesn't sound right,
Very important. Yes.
you kind of don't want to, it doesn't matter how beautiful something looks. If you can't hear the person and what they're saying, obviously that's a problem.
And that's always the case. I mean, think about when you're in a movie theater, one thing that when the sound goes off, the first thing we do is run to the manager and say, I can't hear the movie, even though you can still see it. You got to be able to hear it.
Right. Exactly. Any other tips you can think of, Barry, in terms of
Well,
like,
I mean, really and truly, we kind of covered everything that we were going to talk about with the different types of light, what you would do, paying attention to, what's going on around you, knowing where you want to be as far as when we talk about sound, but
right,
also knowing where you've got power and where you've got everything else that you're able to do. So you can plug your lights in if you need to, or if you're just using small lights, have that battery solution if you need to do that. Just those are the type things that you want to look for when you want to set up an in-home studio is basically what we're doing. In these times that we're in right now, who would ever thought we'd be doing this right now? I mean, I certainly would have.
yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah, and video was already extremely important, and now
yeah,
even more so
yeah,
because it's such a major way of the way that we're communicating with each other.
for
And
sure.
either through meetings or just in general, our whole scope of how we've approached things has changed. And so
I totally agree.
right, yeah, it's
It
really,
still feels good to be able to talk face to face to people, and communicate. So, and
yeah,
looking good while you're doing that is just maybe that's a vain type thing, but I think it's good. So I try to look my best for you, Kelly,
oh,
today.
thank you,
So
Barry. I really appreciate that.
so
And I appreciate your time. I think that's pretty
sure.
much it. We've answered all the
Okay.
questions. And I'll just say, please check out the video that we made on the NanLite YouTube channel and subscribe.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
subscribe to the photo video edu channel, which we're streaming through right now. And if you have
Yes.
any other questions, we're going to upload these and these are going to stay up. So keep asking us questions and we'll try to
Yeah.
answer.
Please send your questions in. We love answering questions about lighting or just about the different types of NanLite lights that we have.
Exactly. Okay. Well, thank you guys.
Thanks.
For us. All right. Bye, Barry.
Bye. See you later.
Bye.